We're barely gonna make a quorum.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the September 24th, 2024 meeting of Human Services Committee. I'll call the meeting to order at 11:23. I'd like to have an approval of the minutes from the prior committee meeting. Supervisor Trainer, Supervisor Bruto on the second. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Privilege to the floor. Anyone from the public, other supervisors have anything to say? Hearing nothing, we'll move on to the action agenda items. The first department is Veteran Services. No one from Veteran Services was able to be here today. There are no action agenda items or new business for Veteran Services. They've submitted their 2025 budget for review. If anyone has any questions on Veteran Services budget, please refer that to Denise DeResta or contact someone from the Board of Supervisors office. So we'll move on to Countryside Adult Home and yeah, we've got a couple of agendas request. If you could bring those to us, please.
Both my action items are to extend our service agreements. So the first one is with our registered dietitian, Jennifer Linehan. She is going to do a 5.5-year agreement, which is fantastic because it's very, very difficult to find a dietitian that only wants to work 12 hours a week or a month rather. Yeah, 12 hours. And someone's like, no, we're not interested. So she has asked for a $2 increase each year, but when you base that on the fact she's only working 12 hours, it's not significant. The entire contract is only for $33,672. And it is a mandated requirement that we have a registered dietitian, and we do get 50% reimbursement for that.
Great, thanks. Someone would like to bring that to the floor, please? Supervisor Strainer and Supervisor Bruno on the second. Questions or comments for Amy?
$2, that $2 an hour?
$2 an hour each year annually. I believe it's in part of your packet. It's on the back page. So like 2024, she'd be getting 46 and then so on until the end of the agreement. But the entire contract would only be that 33,000 because she works so little.
What is the starting this year's rate of pay?
44 is what she was making
Per hour.
per hour.
Okay.
This is just a 1-year contract. There's a typo on your termination date.
Oh, it's 5.5 years. I'm sorry.
That's-
Oh, yep, termination. Yep, I'm sorry. So it's going to go through 3/31 of 30.
So with that amendment that Amanda has given us, we've got a motion, we've got a second. All in favor of approval of request number 1, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. On to request number 2, Amy.
The next one is to continue our pharmacy services agreement with Omnicare. There's actually no changes except for the date of the contract, which will begin November 1st of 24 and terminate on October 31st of 27. But it's the same $2,000 per year with do not exceed of $6,000.
Supervisor Trainer, and we have a second. Supervisor Bruno again. Questions or comments on request number 2? Hearing nothing, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Then the 2 requests, do you want to just kind of run us through the census report and the overtime report, please?
Sure. Census is 37, with a new admit coming next week. Our numbers keep increasing slowly, but we're retaining, so that's always a great thing. Year to date, our overtime is down roughly a little over 300 hours, trying to get as creative as possible But going back to, holidays are something that we have to pay, and it's always gonna keep the overtime there.
Thank you for your efforts. Any other questions, or comments, for Amy and Countryside Adult Home? And of course, her budget information will be included in the next presentation.
Do you want to do it now? So you can leave.
I can,
Is it okay if Amy does her budget now?
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
okay,
I thought that was, okay.
Or just interrupt, Amy, could you just give an overview, like specifically Countryside Adult Home and what's the day-to-day like? What are we doing?
we are providing personal care. We are helping with med management. We're helping them with
What management?
med management, medication management, doctor's appointments. Just, it's our average senior that's out in the community that no longer can provide themselves, either because they don't have family or the resources to do pretty much the same thing as what we're doing there for them. They can't be alone anymore. They need supervision.
Thank you.
Yeah, please proceed with the
The budget.
budget stuff. Yeah, sorry.
Um,
for the confusion.
Overall, our budget's decreased by 2.68%. And that is a decrease of 72,857. And then also we do have a decrease in our revenue by 6.3%, 56,429. Questions?
The bed count, you said 38,
37. Well, I mean, we have a pending one for next week,
total 44,
48.
48.
We do anticipate with the renovation that we will continue. We do have referrals.
This is veterans.
It's better.
We're all set. Thank you very much.
Did you?
Morning, Nina.
Good morning.
Julie.
Good morning.
Okay.
So whoops,
We have got 4 requests, don't we? Yep, 4 requests and some discussion items. If you would like to walk us through request number 1, please.
sure. So request number 1 is to amend our budget to increase expenses and revenues. This is based on an allocation received from OTDA 24 LCMO 7, which was released on July 16th of 2024. The allocation is for family-centered case management services for the program year of 7/1/24 through 6/30/25 for a total amount not to exceed $165,385, which will use 50% of that allocation to be used in 7/1/24 to 12/31/24. And that's based on our plan submission to OTDA.
Motion to bring that to the floor. Supervisor Strainer,
I'll second it.
Supervisor Patchett on the second. Questions or comments? Hearing nothing, I will call the question. All in favor of approval of request number 1, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moved unanimously. Request number 2, please.
Okay, so request number 2 is to appropriate funds from the general fund, unappropriated funds in the amount of 300,000. This is due to court order detention costs requiring additional funding to cover these expenses through year end. The unappropriated expenses are in excess of the revenue, which is the 6,534 from Washington County. There are no additional funds to cover this. Social Services is responsible for the reimbursement of detention expenses as per court order. Just to kind of give some information, these are for cases probation determines a youth cannot be safely maintained in the home or community. And then they're placed in detention pending their disposition on the case, and they're not in DSS custody. It's hard to,
Bring that
Bring it
forward.
to the floor.
Okay, and a second, please.
So we got a
Supervisor
question,
Bruno
what's
on
the
this
Washington
second.
County part of this?
so if there's a youth that's commits a crime in our county, our probation department oversees them, but fiscally, an amount is determined based on the home county. Did I explain that right?
So in other words, the person that committed the crime lives in Washington County and they've got to reimburse us for taking
Mhm.
care of it.
Right.
Yeah, no, you did well.
Sorry, go
No,
ahead.
you go ahead, please.
So, it's hard to estimate these expenses because we're not sure how many youth are going to commit crimes or how many youth are going to be placed. It's really depends on what's happening, and we estimate, which we'll talk about in our budget of how we cover these expenses, but we are required to reimburse them.
Yeah, oh, my question.
Yep.
Is this, I know this is separate from our psychiatric evaluations that are mandated by the state. But this seems like a large amount of, like, similar to the psychiatric evaluations. We're short to the tune of 300 grand, so is this like a new thing that is becoming a state mandate? Cause
So
we originally budget for this?
the issue is to be placed in detention, it's about $1,000 a day.
Same price as the other one,
Yeah.
other one.
So,
No, this
right.
is a little.
And Nina,
Well,
where's
it's a
the
little bit more than,
most local, facility?
there really isn't anything. Westchester County?
Yeah, that was my point. It's not like we're,
No.
driving them down the street.
Well, and we don't know how long they're gonna be placed there either, so we coordinate with the probation department, and as we kind of go through the request, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that in terms of how the state allocates detention funding and STSJP funding, and our detention funding is decreasing, and they're really making a push to prevention efforts and programming. However, sometimes we really cannot avoid that. And our reimbursement rate is minimal. It's 49%, and we don't get much.
So of this 300, we get 49% back?
We've already exhausted it,
We get 49% of the allocation.
right?
So if the state's gonna give us an allocation of $83,000. Nina talked about it a little bit. We roll over some into an STSJP funding because then we're reimbursed 62%. So if that leaves, say, 30,000 for detention, we get 49% up to 30,000, and then the rest is all county share.
But it looks like in this case, we're way over that because we're asking for
We've
another
already-
300 grand.
We've
But
already been
to your
reimbursed
Original
the
point,
full
what
allocation.
was budgeted for
Well, and
originally?
Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, there was money set aside in the previous budget that we didn't use, right? That we had to,
No, not in this one.
not this one, okay, sorry.
So what did we budget?
All right, the original budget was $75,000.
Okay.
Typically, over the last several years, it wasn't being used. Every year, I was decreasing it actually, and then all of a sudden this year,
There you are.
it has just exploded.
So
um,
we budgeted this much and then boom.
Yeah.
process. Okay, that's,
Nina, if I could make a comment, going forward, for our newer members, but also for us who have been around for a while, if you could not use as many of the acronyms, because,
I know, I'm sorry.
no, that's fine, that's
It's
fine.
habit.
I do the same thing myself
Yeah.
oftentimes, but,
That would be great. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
yeah, not a.
So I guess it leads me to my next question is, how much are we budgeting for 2025 for this particular item we're looking at, like, I don't know, close to 400 grand is what you're estimating we're gonna spend in 2024?
Well, we hope not, and so I'm not sure if we want to talk about this now. We're at the budget process. We're looking to include programs in our youth bureau agreement, expand on that and use our our supervision and treatment of juveniles program, so STSJP, that plan, to really bolster up our prevention, and we're trying to prevent those detention placements. We really get a better reimbursement if we shift the funding over, and we've already used our allocation for the 2024-2025 detention allocation.
Good answer, thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Any additional comments? Hearing none, I will call the question. Request number 2, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. And request number 3, please, Nina.
So this is to request to amend our county budget to increase expenses and revenues based on the New York State Child Care Block Grant allocation received by the New York State Office for Children and Family Services in the amount of $400,000. So this is an allocation that reflects additional funding from the Child Care Block Grant for 23-24. And it's to reflect the program expenditures for the increase in eligible applicants for daycare assistance.
Motion to bring that to the floor. Dave? And Dan, thank you very much. Questions or comments on request number 3?
So that, just one,
Go ahead.
so this is just a $400,000 grant application, is that what I'm?
So we receive an allocation from Office for Children and Family Services. We usually we put in the budget the amount we anticipate, and we just don't add it the entire allocation in until we use it, so it doesn't inflate the budget. So as we need to increase more, we'll come back and request that, but it is covered.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, please, it's fine.
Question.
Again, all in favor of approval of request number 3, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. On to request number 4 on the back page.
So request number 4, the draft agreement is in your committee attachment, and I passed out the recent final version to reflect the agreement that we want to enter into with the Youth Bureau. It's the operating agreement for the period of 10/1/24 to 12/31/25 for an amount of $213,000, making quarterly installment payments for the administration and programming of the Youth Bureau. The programming includes the PYD, pre-pins, and the Juvenile Community Restoration and Differential Response. These programs are required and reimbursed per the OCFS LCMs, which are attached in your agenda for program year 10/1/24 to 9/30/25. So that's the funding cycle. This programming is prevention-focused initiative approved by the Office of Children and Family Services in the Supervision and Treatment for Juveniles Program, STSJP, working in collaboration with the department and the Department of Social Services and the Probation Department. This agreement does not include the Youth Development Program, the Youth Sports and Education funding for municipalities and community-based programs. So this is separate.
Just one correction to the agreement. On page 3, if you could change Stan Hall's name, former chair of the Washington County Board of Supervisors, to Bob Henke, who's on the final page.
Oh, on
That's fine.
the Youth
Before
Bureau
you-
agreement? Okay,
Yeah, before you exit, pass that along for signatures.
okay, we'll update that.
And do I hear a motion to bring? I already bring number 4 to the table. Supervisor Trainer, again. Supervisor Bruno in a second. Additional questions on the agreement with Washington County? Okay, hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor of approval of request number 4, say aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. Discussion items, anything other than the, just the monthly commissioners report of activities and updates should have been emailed to you this past week prior to the board meeting. Thank you to Nina and her team for putting that kind of fact sheet out every month for all members of the Board of Supervisors. Want to dive into the budget? Great, thank you.
Okay, if you've had a chance to review your package, there are two cover sheets. One of them is, the top one is currently the way it was submitted in logos. We did ask for a few personnel items, one of them being more overtime. So the second page just reflects how the salary increase would affect the overall budget. So if you want to go down by each program,
What page you want?
please do.
No, no.
It should be a cover page like that.
Our cover page says attachment 5.
Yep,
No,
so it's
look,
the
it's called-
second page of attachment 5.
The second page, right?
Second,
Okay.
third page. I'm sorry.
no, 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 no.
Yeah, we gotta get these numbers.
Like, easy.
Okay.
Some of them are.
So our first budget is 6010. That's our administration budget. That's all our salaries, benefits. That's our rent, security.
That's all commingled together in that line item, that the salaries, the benefits, the rent, the security. What's security?
We have a contract with the sheriff's office. They provide our security services over at the Human Services Building.
Oh,
So we pay for that.
I mean, they secure it on property, meaning physically on,
They have two security
oh, wow,
officers there every day that from open to close.
understood. Thank you.
Next one is the 6050 public facility for children. That's our detention that we've been discussing. I went with 175,000. It's very difficult to budget for this because, like I said, we've had several years where there were no detention, as opposed to what we're seeing this year. The hope is that with this new contract with Youth Bureau, we're going to see it go down again. So I kind of went middle of the road with it at 175,000, and I'm hoping that that will cover our expenses. So 55 is our daycare. Again, our allocation is actually close to $3 million. And we put in initially what we think we're going to spend, because it is almost 100% reimbursable. We have to meet a certain amount as our maintenance of effort, and after that, it's 100%. So I don't want to put in the full thing because we're not going to spend almost $3 million in daycare. You know, if we find we're gonna exceed the 125, we'll come back and ask it in. Moving on to the next one is our 6070. That's our Title 20 expenses. That's our adult protective, domestic violence, and our TANF under 200%, which is our poverty level through our temporary assistance program. And it's 100% reimbursed. So I just went by a 5-year look back and take the average to come up with an amount for coming year. The next one is 6,100, which is our Medicaid weekly shares. I have them going down a little bit, and this is based on, I get a worksheet. All fiscal units statewide get a calculator, so to speak, which is a worksheet to calculate Medicaid shares. And I've used it forever, and it usually is pretty close. So
We get zero reimbursement.
0.
It's 100% on the county. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Which one is that we get the zero reimbursement for? Which item?
MMIS.
6-1 what?
0.
MMIS?
Yes.
Okay.
If you go across.
A county share is the full amount, meaning.
The weekly, yes, so the county share is the county's portion, which that amount is determined by the State Department of Health.
Reimbursement rate,
0.
zero.
Yeah, it's not good.
Mile.
No, it's very good.
The next one is 6101, which is medical assistance. We do tend to see just a little bit every year. It's when a qualifying individual gets hired somewhere with the agreement, we'll pay their insurance till they take them on permanently. It's kind of a trial basis for a company to take one of our clients. And if it all works out and they hire them, then they cover the insurance. And we normally only pay a few months. 6109 and 6119 are both our foster care. 6109 also does include our temporary assistance where we pay shelter and rent for clients. We're holding pretty steady on the 6109. It's in the 6119. We're seeing huge increases in foster care costs, institution payments. We're seeing more kids that are placed in education for the handicap, and those they're expensive when schools place them for their education. So that one I did have to increase significantly. 6123 is our dating Penn State detention. We're still not seeing a lot in there. We've had one this year. So I don't want to completely eliminate it because that's when, they'll start having placements there. 6129 State Training School. That's when they're actually in OCFS custody, which is New York State Office of Family Services. These kids are in their custody, but we are responsible for the bill because they were a Warren County individual. And again, that's over $1,000 a day. And on this one, we get billed 2 years after the service is provided. So if it goes up a lot or changes, it's really hard to know.
Well, good thing they know we're gonna give them money in 2 years, huh?
How do they know?
Really? Inflated.
6140 is our safety net. It's pretty much when all the other programs that people have qualified for have been exhausted. This is their fail-safe program. We pay a lot of burials. We pay for a lot of shelter, rent, that kind of thing out of this particular code.
Yeah, close to $1 million.
Burials aren't cheap.
Burials, I bet have doubled over the last 2 years. The amount
Doesn't
paid
get
for.
Someone gives us a portion of, small portion, don't they?
We do get some reimbursement.
Yeah, it's like nothing.
$3,800.
$400 or something.
No, it's more than that. It used to be $900. Yeah, it might have gone, the reimbursement might have gone up on that actually. For some reason, I have
Is that
50.
burial or cremation?
It depends on what the application is for, what the person applying for the burial assistance is requesting. Cremation and burial is Both are included.
Oh, so they can request either way. Who's requesting it?
Whoever's applying for the burial assistance.
So would that be a family member? Could be.
A family member who's not a legally responsible relative, so they're not fiscally responsible to pay for that person.
So it might not be the executor of the person's estate, or it could be the executor.
It could be.
What if they die and don't have an executor?
So the funeral home applies for the burial assistance on behalf of that person.
Okay.
Good
Que-
question, Patrick.
Yeah, question. I'm just kind of piggybacking on Mr. Strainer's question. So essentially, if somebody does have the means that's a close enough relative when they pass away, then that relative is responsible if they're close enough.
They have to be a fiscally responsible relative. So if for example, if you're a husband or wife, a spouse or a parent, you're fiscally responsible to pay for that. But if your parents pass away and they don't have burial expenses and you can't afford to bury them, you can apply for that burial assistance.
Okay, and essentially that safety net line, HR 6140, is the county's way of supplementing to help pay for that.
Yes, but that also covers your safety net cases, not just burial assistance. That's not the amount for burial.
What is a safety net case?
So that is your adult applicant for temporary assistance that does not have a dependent.
Okay.
Our homeless population, our reimbursements are low for those cases. That's why we try to bulk up our services to get them employed, get them in long-term supports, become self-sufficient.
Sounds like a lot of moving pieces to try to, it's almost strategy to keep costs low. Is that kind of the way I'm seeing it?
Yes, and when housing, if people don't have housing and they're placed in motels and we're paying the weekly rate for them to be in temp housing and we are seeing increasing numbers for homeless, these numbers go up.
Thank you.
And for the most part, most of these programs, they're mandated and required. So as we go through them, we're required to provide the service and we just estimate based on caseload sizes of previous years. And Julie does a look back to determine the amounts. So we really can't set a limit on who's going to qualify. That qualification is really determined either through the Office of Children and Families or the Office for Temporary and Disability Assistance.
Mandated and required, regardless whether we get reimbursed or not.
And for the most part, we do get reimbursements, but just some programs are less than others. Yeah.
I don't think I've seen much of a change, if any change, up or down on the percentage of the rate for reimbursements over the last few years. They've been
No.
pretty consistent, 75 or 76, and half of that for a couple of the programs. So.
Right.
I assume that workload falls on each department in terms of applying for the reimbursements, right? You're in charge of applying for the reimbursement?
No, most of them are allocations and based on claiming. So we get an allocation or it's based on what we're claiming for those programs through our systems that we use internally that go through the state.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the Department of Social Services budget? Anything else to?
Sorry, I should note that, yes, I am responsible for making sure that we're meeting our program outcomes and established rates in terms of meeting our outcomes and performance.
I can just add that this past year, the state with the Code Blue program told us how much we were going to be receiving, and Nina and her team took it upon themselves to basically rewrite that decision and received considerably more so than was initially essentially offered to us. So they're on top of these types of things and trying to bring more revenues into the county. Sometimes the state tells you no and no is no. Any other,
But the bottom line is the county projected share is 20 million, close to it. 2024, it was almost 21 million, so. Healthy chunk.
Mhm.
anything else? Comments, public comment from the public? Any supervisors or anyone else? Yeah,
I'll just say what a nice job you people are doing. That's, I mean, once you start going into this and seeing all the different programs and keeping all this stuff straight, you guys are, it's amazing. So thank you for what you do. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Julie.
Lucky Julie.
My last one.
I was gonna say, Julie's probably happy this is
I've
the
been
last
looking
one.
forward to that.
Oh, no, you haven't. You'll be back. They never leave.
great job, Julie. Thank you very much. Last call for questions or comments.
Call for alcohol.
Hearing nothing, I will ask, motion to adjourn.
Come on.
Bruno and Mr. Strainer, all in favor of adjournment, say aye.